Well, welcome everyone. I am so excited for our first episode and to be surrounded by old friends.
Yes.
And,
Yay.
I think experts in the field, and this is an episode that I'm particularly excited about because I feel like I'm still learning for myself, learning about my period and how it could not suck.
Yeah.
And I still think back to when I first got my period and just how shocking it was and how painful and how I thought it was normal to live with that pain. I ended up taking like massive painkillers throughout my life and thinking, wow, this is normal. And then learning from you guys that that's not normal and that's not how it should be was just incredibly eye-opening. And so I'm so thrilled that you're both here, that you're both friends. And I think that we've all kind of inspired each other, which is super, super powerful. And so I actually love for you guys to introduce yourselves. Alissa, maybe you can start, and then Yasmin, you can introduce yourself and how Alissa's actually inspired you.
Yeah.
I'm Alissa Vitti. I'm a functional nutrition and women's hormone expert, and I'm a female biohacking pioneer for the past 25 years. I'm also the creator of the cycle syncing method. Outside of my research, I'm a femtech founder. I'm the CEO of Flow Living and the creator of the MyFlow period and cycle syncing app, and we provide digital hormonal health care from your first period to your last. I keep busy. I also write books. I'm a 2-time best-selling author of both Woman Code and In the Flow. And I would say for the past couple of decades, I've been just focused on shifting the narrative around hormonal health care, making conversations mainstream that were once not, like those memes about the color of your period blood. I actually kicked those off, and cycle syncing and calling out really the gender equality in research and biohacking and advocating for better solutions for women.
And
You're
I have
just
a nickname.
amazing.
I have a nickname for you that I thought I came up with, but it turns out everyone calls you that, which is the OG hormone whisperer. So apparently I didn't make that
I've
up.
had many names. Yes, that's one of them.
Oh, she is the OG. Big time, big time. I'm Yasmin Nouri. I am a podcast host and entrepreneur, and I am wildly passionate about supporting women. My podcast is called Behind Our Empire. I've had both of you ladies on, and my company is called beeya Wellness, and we support women's health and hormones using real food. And Alissa, going to your original story, Kat, I also had debilitating periods at the age of 13, was on birth control, got off birth control, and that's when my body just was even worse than I could have ever expected. And Alissa, I remember she was saying on a podcast, your hormones and your periods could be your superpower. And I was like, absolutely not. This woman must be crazy. Like, I'm suffering every month. What is she doing? And I explored the power of food and everything that she taught. And I am here to say I completely reversed my symptoms, and everything that she has been at the forefront of talking about is incredible. And so if you're suffering and you're listening and you think there's nothing that you can do, this episode is 100% for you, because there's so much you could do.
I love that. And I feel like we learn so much in school about how to not get pregnant when we're younger, but we learn nothing about our bodies and nothing about our periods. And I just feel like every day I'm learning something more and more about my hormones and what to do. How do you prepare, and how do you actually enjoy the time of having your period? And with that, I'd love for both of you guys to, if you were telling your younger self, your 13-year-old self, what should you know about your period? What should you do? What advice would you kind of give that early version of yourselves? Alissa, maybe you can kick us off.
Oh, sure. I mean, I remember the first time I heard about my period, I was in sex ed class. I think it was 6th grade, and I was absolutely awe-inspired by, I'm going to bleed every month and not die in 6th grade. But if I was a normal person who maybe had a normal reaction, and certainly what I'm telling my daughter who just turned 10, I would say, your period is your 5th vital sign. it, like your temperature, like your blood pressure, it deserves respect and care. And any symptoms that you have that show up, they're just there to help nudge you back to a practice of improving how you're taking care of your body, because you're supposed to feel great every day of the month, pain-free, symptom-free. And then on top of that, when you care for your cycle, the return on that investment is that you get all of these huge benefits to, you know, your cognitive strengths, your physical strength, your emotional strength. I mean, it really is, as you quoted me earlier, a superpower. And you get to have this initiated at puberty. It's like this amazing thing. So I would totally hype it up and celebrate it, because it's worthy of the hype.
I would love to be a fly in the wall when you talk to your daughter. Like, can you record that so that we can then just all talk to our daughters that way, you know?
Yeah, you got to write your next book, Alissa, on that. 100%.
I'll keep giving me assignments. I'm going to start write the book, start the podcast, record my conversation.
I love to hear that talk. Like, yeah, that's incredible. Yasmin, how about you?
Yeah, I love, you know, what, Alissa, you said about the fifth vital sign. I was going to bring that up too, and how it's a report card every month. And I know, Kat, we were chatting before the podcast. You're like, this month, my symptoms actually were great. And we were reflecting about all the things that you did. So it's like, it's a nice report card that keeps you in check on how you're doing and how you're feeling. And really one thing that I wish my younger self knew was, you don't have to go on birth control to manage your PMS symptoms. And the amount of younger women that I know who are still going that path, it just breaks my heart, because I'm like, there's so many natural food and lifestyle solutions that could help so early in your life versus just going down that route. Of course, to each their own, everybody has their own path, but that path for me was not supportive of my periods when I got off in my late 20s.
It's so interesting, having had 3 kids personally. Before I had kids, my periods were so painful. And then after having kids, my periods have been very different. And whether it's what I'm eating or the seeds that I'm eating, it's interesting to really see that shift, and also know that you don't have to necessarily, pain is not normal.
Yeah.
How do you guys think about, what are some tools or ways to make your periods less painful? Alissa?
Well, I think I always like to start with like the understanding of why do we have pain in the first place, you know, and there's always many things, but there's really 2 main causes for cramps, for pain, right? One is chemical and one is, let's say, functional. So on the functional side, pain could be caused by any of the following conditions, like endometriosis that you do or don't have diagnosed, fibroids that you do or do not know that you have, infections, an IUD placement, ovarian cysts, a narrow cervix, or even a tipped or retroverted uterus, right? So these are all structural, physical, functional things that are happening inside your body. Then the chemical side, this is where, you know, you can interact with both, and you can navigate and manage the pain in both cases. But the chemical series is really interesting, because you have this series called prostaglandins that stimulate the uterine muscles to contract. And there are 3 types, PGE1, 2, and 3. And the one that causes uterine contractions and pain is PGE2. But I just want to point out that, like, if you've bought into some of the period mythology, you know, that we've all been like bathed in, which is, you know, periods are supposed to be painful and there's nothing you can do to fix it. If that were the case, you would have either all 3 prostaglandins causing uterine contraction, or at least 2 out of the 3 causing uterine contractions, but you only have the one, right? So the idea is that the uterus is very efficient. You have one prostaglandin that's causing the muscle to contract and expel the lining, and then you have 2 prostaglandins, PG1 and 3, causing that relaxation. So you should not be in pain. But the problem is, when you eat certain things, you jack up the production of PGE2 unknowingly. Things like animal fats and dairy really increase that PGE2 series. So what you can do is start to decrease those foods, right? And then you want to, in order to boost PGE1 and 3, you want to get your linoleic acid up. So load up on omega-3 rich like salmon and sardines, or some great seeds like flax, pumpkin, and sunflower and sesame. And then in the case, and it's really amazing, within one cycle, max 2, if you really are diligent about shifting the fat, the dietary fat intake, you can be pain-free, within a cycle or 2. And I've been doing this for years, so this is something that is possible for every woman. On the functional side, when you have some of these diagnosed conditions, each one has its own path to pain reduction, but in most of those cases, it all starts with reducing dietary sources of inflammation, improving estrogen elimination via the liver and large intestine, and some of those other things where both diet and supplements play a role. So long story short, it's not a mystery why we have pain, and you can interact with your body via nutritional manipulation to improve how you experience pain or a lack thereof each month.
So what would be your top 3 things that you would eat or take for a less painful period?
Omega-3 fish oil every day, for sure. And then, I'm like a seed person. Me and Yasmin, we are seed people. Yeah. So, I'm always doing my flax, my pumpkin seeds, my sunflower seeds, my sesame seeds, as often as possible, because it's just the benefits are so evident. That's really it. And I'm dairy-free, have been for 25 years or more. I don't do too much in terms of the heavy animal fats as well. So, and I used to have debilitating pain before I figured this out. And I've been in labor, so I know it was exactly identical to labor pain.
Yes.
And if I didn't catch it before those cramps kicked in with a little, ibuprofen back in the day, I would be out nauseous, green, and to figure it out and just switch the dietary fat sources and then just be pain-free, remarkable.
So reducing dairy, animal fats, increasing omega-3s, and seeds and nuts have been your secret formula.
Yes.
For
and everyone else that I can convince to do it works.
Amazing. That seems pretty doable. I'm into it. Yeah. Yasmin, how about you?
Yeah, just everything that Alissa mentioned, and just to harp on the seed cycling component, which is essentially you're eating 2 different types of seeds throughout your cycle. You start with flax and pumpkin and sesame and sunflower. And when my functional medicine doctor told me about that, I was like, no freaking way. Seeds are going to help these horrible cramps that I'm having. I'm literally on the floor 3 to 4 days a month. And I was desperate. I didn't listen to her for 2 years. I was like, this is woo-woo. How can food and seeds actually make a difference? And truly, like Alissa said, 1 month with shifting my diet and adding these seeds, I had minimal cramps. I'm like, what? How are we not talking about this? Like, this would have saved me 20 years of being in pain, and I could have, so I'm very passionate about the topic of eating the right foods, adding seeds to the point where I started a company around the seed cycling protocol. But one other thing that I noticed when I used to have cramps that really helped me also, in addition to everything we talked about, was minimizing alcohol. So now I don't drink alcohol, but I used to have a glass of wine actually quite often back in the day. I used to work in finance, so that was the thing in New York. Glass of red wine was my thing. And I noticed I would have horrible cramps leading up to it when I would drink, and I would experiment. I'm like, okay, let's not drink for a week before. And I noticed such a difference. And now, I've really dialed in so many aspects of health that I've kind of took away alcohol just because I feel significantly better. I still have a glass of wine here and there, but I would say alcohol and also caffeine on an empty stomach, that would kill me when I used to get horrible cramps. So if you're going to have caffeine, eat first and then have your coffee, from my own personal experience.
Yeah, I would love to, 2 things. Would love to hear from you guys about caffeine on an empty stomach, because I'm a big I do that a lot. Oops. That is how I start my day. But I do want. Sorry, I know I've heard you talk about. Okay, tell me why I should stop doing this. Because I think, I've been playing around with intermittent fasting. And I do want like a hit of something strong in the morning, and I don't know what. And coffee does that for me, right? Same. Organic coffee, whatever. But I needed Anyway, I know you have so many thoughts on intermittent fasting and having a black coffee in the morning. So convinced me that I should quit.
All right, well, if you have a cycle, and this is sort of why I ended up writing the second book, In the Flow, because it's so frustrating. We're kind of being messaged all of these things around wellness, like intermittent fasting or HIIT workouts being the gold standard of what we should do. We are researching the effects of these dietary concepts or physical fitness concepts, and we're excluding women in their reproductive years from this research, but yet we're marketing the information of the results of the study to everyone and saying this is universally applicable, when in fact that is just not scientifically accurate to do that. We should be very gender specific about how we present that information. We should say, and and that's what I called out in the book, I said, for men and postmenopausal women, intermittent fasting confers all the benefits that you've all heard about in the news, right? But for women in their reproductive years, actually, it does not. Women with PCOS do benefit from some intermittent fasting. But every other cycling woman actually can have the opposite. It can disrupt your thyroid, it can disrupt your progesterone levels, it can shrink your ovaries, it can make your PMS worse. It really can mess with all sorts of aspects of your endocrine function. So it's not an optimal biohack, intermittent fasting, for women in their reproductive years. Now, there's an alternative, which we'll get to, but the idea is that you wouldn't want to just go prolonged periods of time without eating. And then on top of that, right, because it's fundamentally destabilizing to your blood sugar, but on top of that, to then add in the caffeine on an empty stomach, you're now worsening the sort of impact on blood sugar and cortisol patterns, which are already now being stressed from the not eating. So now you're kind of doubling down on that becoming more problematic for your cycle. And why does this impact your cycle? Anytime you disrupt blood sugar stability and cortisol levels, it has a down-regulating effect on progesterone production. You need to protect your progesterone production very intentionally, right? Because without adequate levels of progesterone at any time of your life while you have a cycle, that is the root cause of PMS, right? So in the luteal phase, you're supposed to have a nice rise of progesterone that is higher than the rise of estrogen. That ratio of more progesterone to estrogen equals 0 PMS, 0 symptoms, happy days. But when you do things like caffeine on an empty stomach, intermittent fasting, HIIT workouts every day, the same calorie amounts every day, all the things that are biohacks that work for guys, and you put it in the female ecosystem, you then disrupt your blood sugar on a daily basis. You jack up your cortisol levels when you shouldn't, and you suppress that progesterone production, which now you invert that ratio. You have too much estrogen, not enough progesterone. All of this is bad news, and really the root cause of the reason why you're even doing any of this unwittingly is because we've been fed a gender-biased narrative of wellness and biohacking. And that has to stop. So yes, I feel very passionately about your early morning coffee. And I would love to see that change. I'm happy to work on that with you anytime.
Oh man, I'm frightened and I'm questioning my life decisions right now.
Good.
So thank you for that. Now we'll get to the solution, because I need a quick change of a morning ritual now based on that. Yasmin, can you say a little bit more about seed cycling? I know you hit on it a little bit. It's like so amazing that you can also use nutrition as a tool. So what seeds do you eat during what phases? How do you think about that?
Yeah. So if you're still in your reproductive years and you're getting your period, you'll start what we call phase 1, the first day of your period. And you're essentially eating pumpkin seed and flaxseed. And I was doing this wrong for so long, but make sure you freshly ground it, because that makes it more bioavailable for your body and more effective. And then from the second phase, you'll be on the first phase for 2 weeks, and then the second phase is called phase 2, and the second 2 weeks of your cycle, you'll be on sesame seed and sunflower seed. And essentially, the goal of seed cycling is for the first phase, the nutrients in the seeds are essentially supporting your estrogen and the rise in progesterone, like what Alissa was saying, that we want that rise. And the second is supporting the balance of estrogen to progesterone. So I'm sure Alissa can talk a lot more in detail, but any imbalances there is what is going to cause bad PMS, the breast tenderness, the cramps, the bloating, the mood swings, the acne. So you're essentially just having this, it's like a multivitamin for your hormones. It's high nutrient dense food every day of your cycle. And it has worked wonders. I know we were chatting a bit that we're working on a clinical study, but we didn't invent this. We made it just easier for someone to do. And I'm like, I've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of women transform their period through having this in their toolkit alongside, everything that we've been talking about today.
I think about using tampons. I was using tampons as a kid, and that I felt like using tampons, I had a more painful period.
Yeah.
And now I kind of, I use different things like pads and tampons and cups, and kind of use a mixture of different things. And I'm wondering if you guys have any, how do you feel about menstrual tools? And also the other question I have is there's just been this rise of, I guess, bad PR when it comes to harmful ingredients, heavy metals, toxins in some of these menstrual products. What role does that play in your period? It is something that is just so close to your body. I mean, it's in your body. Is there any leaching? I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, but it's been so top of mind for me.
I mean, unfortunately, there are now studies that are sort of showing the levels of chemicals, whether it be heavy metals or PFAS in some of these products. And that's really concerning on the one hand, but also progress that research is even available to us because it's historic in nature. And this is where I sit, having been doing this now for 25 years. Even when it's bad news, I get excited because it's being looked at for the first time ever, and at least from there we can make some improvements. So yes, it is bad news, and yes, we've all been unnecessarily exposed to things, whether it be through these chemicals or the PFAS. But the good news is there are products that you can use that are organic, truly, and you can look for 100% organic cotton tampons. You can use 100% organic cotton pads. You can use menstrual cups. There's definitely options. You've got to be really good about looking deeper in the FAQ section of any brand you're considering buying. And my recommendation is, if they are transparent about their chemical assessment, then that's a brand that you can trust. If their FAQs include nothing about PFAS and heavy metals in their physical products, then chances are they're not either looking or they're not sharing, and that's not good. And then, and the reason why we have to be concerned is, of course, that the vagina is very permeable, and so anything that's there's a lot of absorption possible. So you do want to be mindful of the products that you use, and it is true, and because of the action of the fascia, in the pelvic basin, inserting things, especially tampons, anecdotally, I've heard across the board, makes the period feel more efforted. So my recommendation is, for day 1 and 2, at least, the sort of heavier flow days, use something that's collecting but not inserted, and that might be something that helps with that discomfort.
Yeah, just wear an overnight pad for 4 days in a row.
Me
right?
too. That's what I do. I'm a grandmother. I'm just owning it. I work out with it. Because to your point, when I was wearing tampons, the first 2 days, it just felt uncomfortable. And I'm like, why? I'm in my 30s. Why am I feeling uncomfortable these days? Who cares? So yes, I'm the same.
I know, it's so embarrassing. I wear these tight workout pants, and I've got an overnight pad in there.
I got to work out with you.
Yeah.
We'll make it a thing.
And we have oh my gosh, what was her name? She ran the London Marathon without anything in.
Oh yeah.
And that was groundbreaking. That was back in 2017, maybe.
Kiran Gandhi or?
Kiran Gandhi, yes.
Yes, I've known her for a long time.
She was just so brave to do that, and to just say, why should I be worried about the visual appearance of having a menstrual cycle, which every woman has, which is the basis of all life that's created, in the human species. Like, why do I need to hide this? And by the way, I'm gonna go run this marathon and crush it. Like, that's the attitude, not worrying about if anybody can see your pad, right? Like, just if you're gonna go work out and you're bleeding, you're the best, right? Good for you.
No, totally. I feel like I feel less worried about it as I've gotten older. I remember being a child and I'm on my friend's white couch and getting it stained. And then she told all the boys, and it was like the talk of the town for like multiple months. Aww. And I was like, traumatized as a kid that I stained a white couch. But I'm like, I don't care anymore.
We all have that story. I remember like bleeding in my math class in middle school, and my friend gave me her white sweater to like quickly run out of there. So we all have these stories, but it's crazy.
I think, and this just brings me back to my daughter. It's, the normalization of like exposure to blood really starts in that mother-daughter relationship. And imagine, Kat, if you had just seen some menstrual blood staining in your mom's bed, right? And then you got to this event and it happened. Your friend would never have had the power to tease you about it if your reaction to it was like ordinary, like, oh yeah, of course, I bleed. Sometimes it comes out in unexpected places like every other woman. What's your problem? Like, why are you making a big deal? So we can train up our girls by normalizing their exposure to the bleed through seeing your bleed.
Yes, 100%.
And then all of a sudden, the girls are not doing mean girl culture to each other because they're scared too. This girl that teased you about your blood is also obviously terrified and did not have this normalized, and so she's just emoting that and displacing that and making you the recipient of her fear. And it's like a whole negative thing, as opposed to if we all just see the blood and know about it, why are we going to tease each other about our gift, our power? Like, that's just, that girl stuff has to go.
Yeah, I don't remember ever seeing my mom's, period or pads, or I think it was so private. And now my 3 daughters will like burst into the bathroom while I'm changing my pad or my tampon, and they're like, ugh, that's horrible. What is that? Are you okay? Like, does it hurt? And I love that it's changing, and I love that we're just open about what's going on in our bodies with our kids. Like, it's got to have an impact and change on culture if we're the ones that are having those open conversations.
100%. So glad things are changing.
What's in each of your toolkits? Like, what do you got in your bag? What do you do for your period?
Oh my gosh, so much. I'll go first. I would say maybe like the top 3 things that I do or have for my period is, one of them, what's in my bag. So I literally will have beef sticks and olives, so protein and fat, because I know when I'm on my period, any spikes or dips in my blood sugar, I am a mean person. I don't feel good. I'm not high functioning. So I take my food intake very seriously. So I will always have snacks around, in addition to making sure I'm eating literally 3 meals a day and trying my best not to skip meals. In terms of what I use, going back to the overnight heavy pads, I use a brand called Rael, and they're very comfortable. I love them. And then I would say seed cycling, like just really leaning into food to support my periods, because the months that I'm not, I will immediately see a difference. And going back to what we said, starting out, your period is your report card. So after years of me dialing it in, I know what will work for me and what doesn't. So I would say those are probably maybe like the 3 things top of mind that I really double down on.
Yeah, it seems so achievable too. It's like, it's not that complicated. It's not that expensive. A pad, some seeds,
totally,
some almonds.
Yeah, and like get good sleep and movement. Like all these things are free.
Yeah, it's not like I'm sure Alissa's is more complicated, and you have all those supplements behind you. I want to know what they are too.
I mean, from a product point of view, I like Organics brand pads and tampons because they're as far as I'm aware, they're the only 100% through and through organic cotton product. You know, so I like that. And I'm definitely a pad person after having gone through labor. And then, you know, from a self-care practice perspective, day one, it's like my monthly holiday. Like I don't push I don't go and do like a big workout. I'm not trying to prove to myself that I can do those things simultaneously. I really enjoy like the fact that this is the most, you know, this is like the nadir point of my hormonal journey in the month, meaning it's the lowest levels of all hormones when the day one bleed starts. So like I just want to chill, so I chill. Day two, I might do some yin yoga, no inversions, of course. And I just, you know, I keep it really easy. By day three, I'm like ready to move and do that. But I really love day one and day two. I do a lot of journaling. I really harness the sort of extra special brain connection that's happening at this time between the right and left hemispheres of the brain. So I kind of do like a life inventory. How are different aspects of my life working out this month? How did it go with my relationship with my husband, with my relationship with my family? How did it go with work? How did it go with my self-care practices, with sleep? Is there anything that's out of sort? And how do I feel about that? And what do I think I need to do? So I kind of clear out the emotional cobwebs and then make a game plan for what I'd like to see happening in the following month.
Wait, I love that you said your husband and the relationship. I feel like that's such a sticky one to navigate when you're getting your period. I feel like my husband always like calls me. He's like, "Oh, you're getting your period," and now I show him my tracking so he knows and doesn't ask me because it pisses me off so much. I'm like, "Oh, you expect me to be crazy right now?" So
yeah, let's definitely dive into that for sure, because it's part of the gender bias in the culture that we have a narrative that says, oh, when you're menstruating, you're, you know, an altered person that's not your usual self, and therefore we have to blame it on your hormones, which is just, I mean, so maddening, because everybody has hormones 100% of the time. Men have them too. Men have hormonal patterns that fluctuate. To call out and vilify women for their hormonal patterns is disrespectful and wrong. Period. Pun intended, full stop. Like, we have to put a stop to that. And what we should be doing instead is, you know, having men be interested and invested in their partner's hormonal reality so that they can interact and biohack that with their partner to support her. Just like we do this, you know, kind of almost automatically. If you're in a heterosexual relationship, you know that you might not always approach your male partner for like hot sex at midnight, because his testosterone that's the lowest time. He should be asleep by then, making testosterone for the next day. So you may not get the response that you want from him, and you'll learn that's his pattern, and you wouldn't question it. You wouldn't say, hey, is this your time of the month? Is that why you're like this? Right? You would just take it as a data point, and you wouldn't have judgment about it. But the fact that we have these same data points, but we get judged for it, is just wrong.
Do you have an experience with this?
Well, I feel I don't, but my husband is in wellness and he understands. And I was just going to say that might be what's missing, is a lot of people, men and women, we're not educated that hormones are shifting. Like what you were saying, Alissa, about testosterone. I literally thought, I had no clue our hormones would fluctuate. And that was why we feel a different way with periods. And I look at my husband, I'm like, good for you. You wake up every day with the same freaking testosterone peaking. But it's just like an education aspect. And, you know, honestly, thanks to Alissa's book, I will put it in my calendar and I will make sure that I'm not over scheduling myself with social events, podcasts, meetings, because I did that for so long and I feel so burnt out. And I'm like, I just don't want to live like this anymore. So now I honor it and I just communicate to my team, to my husband.
Let's hear more period toolkits as well as supplements.
Okay.
I'd love to hear your supplement recommendations.
Well, The other thing that I definitely do every single day of the bleed is I start my day with this beautiful pot of tea, and I make my own blend. I discard the tea bag, so I get my own little pot. I cut out, or I have my own loose leaf tea. Rooibos, dandelion, raspberry leaf, and nettle. Delicious, okay? And it's warm, it's hot, it's nourishing, it helps the body, but the raspberry leaf improves uterine tone. So in traditional Chinese medicine, just even the idea of toned muscle, right? The uterus is a muscle. We want it to work efficiently. So raspberry leaf helps the uterus contract efficiently and relax efficiently, and you want that. And then nettle, because of the drop in estrogen, it can be a more problematic histamine time for women. So you can feel like your immune system's a little wonky, you can feel more inflamed, you can feel more irritated. Nettle is really soothing for that, and also has been shown to reduce cramps. So that I definitely do every single day of the bleed. It's like my power period tea. And supplements, I take the balanced supplements that I formulated, which are over here behind me. So they're sort of a blend of, in my research, there were so many things that women were micronutrient deficient in when they were presenting with hormonal problems. Most hormonal imbalances are caused by a combination of exposure to endocrine disruptors, mismanaged diet, and micronutrient depletion, right? These three things. So then, making sure that you're getting therapeutic doses that have been clinically evaluated to improve endocrine function is really hard to find, because a lot of supplements are not thinking about women's specific needs, and so they're like, not enough B6, not enough B vitamins in general, which we need to help with progesterone and cortisol management. So I take balance. I take Ease, the Ease product that I formulated for perimenopause. Since I'm over 35, I want to protect my ovarian aging rate. And one of the most important supplements you can take to do that is low-dose melatonin. But all the male biohackers said not to take melatonin, Alissa. Well, that's because that's different for men. And there is study upon study showing how for women over 35, it is critical to supplement with this hormone. It's a hormone to protect against what happens. If you don't, right, after 35, melatonin starts to precipitously drop off. It's the first thing that changes, and that signals to the pituitary gland to start making more follicular stimulating hormone. When you make enough and you reach a certain threshold, ovulation stops. So it's this melatonin dip and FSH rise that starts to have the first part of perimenopause go quickly. So I definitely recommend supplementing with a low dose, like 3 milligrams or under, to support your ovarian age health, 35 and up. And then, of course, I take my cycle syncing supplements, so different formulation for each of the 4 phases of the cycle.
What are some of those micronutrients that you mentioned? You mentioned B vitamins. What other ones do you think people are allowed?
Omega-3s, vitamin D3. I mean, vitamin D3, it's remarkable how deficient most of us are in that. And in one study, they found that 93% of women who had idiopathic infertility had a vitamin D3 deficiency in common.
It's almost everyone I know is low in vitamin D.
It's really interesting. I think magnesium is really important for women, obviously, both from a menstrual cycle health perspective and PMS, but especially perimenopause. You've got to be taking lots and lots of magnesium to protect your adrenal glands so that you're not, again, having that excess cortisol suppressed progesterone process. I like vitamin C for women. I think certain bioflavonoids are really important, again, to help protect the adrenals. I think probiotics are also really important because the gut estrogen elimination situation is so deficient in most women that we have excess levels of estrogen that our body just can't break down. So I think those are really, really helpful.
Do you take any supplements?
She hit them all. I mean,
magnesium?
Magnesium is huge. We actually launched a magnesium at beeya because of what we're talking about. And from my understanding, over 75% of people are deficient, and it's part of over 600 bodily functions. So it's such an easy, safe thing to add and makes such a difference. So yeah, magnesium for years has been my go-to, a multivitamin, like a balance or a ritual, because I know I'm not eating diverse enough. I'm not getting all those nutrients that we need. Omega-3, like Alissa said, I swear by as well. Those are probably the main ones. Yeah, and seed cycling, which we talked about.
Amazing. I feel like everyone's got a lot to think about.
I know.
And buy.
Yeah.
I think one conversation that I'd love to go back to, because I'm thinking of like, oh, what's the conversation I'm going to have with my daughter like tomorrow? How would you guys explain the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle? Like, how would you explain that to an 8-year-old?
Well, I mean, certainly at 8 years old, it's a different conversation, but it's one that, essentially what I told her is that, at a certain point when you're about 12 years old, you're going to start having this monthly cycle. And you're going to go from feeling the same way every day to feeling different in 4 different ways about each week of the month. So there's like 4 parts to this cycle that's going to start. And you're going to feel a little bit different in each of those 4 phases. And you're going to feel equally good in all the 4 phases, but you're just going to feel a little different. And it's really important. It's your job to know which part of the cycle you're in and to pay attention to how you're feeling, right? And that's how you're going to start to learn what your cycle is trying to tell you and what you need to do to take care of it. Now, but the biggest thing that I told her was that this thing that happens in your brain and in your body is like a special initiation and a gift that you're given at puberty. And I did have that specific kind of language with her. So she's excited about it. And it's paid dividends because last year she was in 4th grade and she came home one day and she's like, Mom, everybody's talking about bras, boys, and periods. And I said, oh, that's early. And then I found out that somebody had been circulating a book. I think it was Dear God, It's Me, Margaret, and that's fine. It's great. And she's like, I just don't have crushes on boys, and I think it's silly that all these girls are checking who's wearing a bra because nobody has boobs yet. And I was like, yep. And then she's like, and also I know everything about periods, so like, what is all the drama? And I was like, my job is done. Like, we're good.
Wow.
So, I think that that's the kind of thing that you want, a really self-aware, possessed, tween who's going to go into this transition not surprised, not shocked, and not scared. And the only way to do that is to really explain the 4 phases to her as a young person. Now, that's the little girl version, but for the adult version, I would say...
The big girl, what's the big girl version?
The big girl version is you've got 4 phases of the cycle: follicular, ovulatory, luteal, and menstrual. They affect your metabolic speed, your cortisol patterns, your immune system, your cognitive patterns. They affect absolutely everything about your reality, and you've got to learn the patterns. So in the follicular phase, estrogen levels are lower, but they're rising, and your energy starts to rise in tandem with that. You're interested in new things. Your brain is being gently stimulated by that, so you're kind of curious, like, what do I want? What do I want to do? In ovulation, which is one of the main events of the cycle, estrogen is at its peak concentration, along with FSH, LH, and the introduction of testosterone. We have hyperstimulation in the verbal and social centers of the brain, making this a very social and energized time. Testosterone also gives us a boost in the gym in terms of strength gains, and certainly with our sex drive, and all of that is very good. Because the more orgasms you have, the better your health is from an oxytocin and nitric oxide perspective. Another undiscussed biohack, in my opinion, for women. Okay, it's another conversation, although I've written many chapters about it.
Yeah.
A whole episode to come.
Yeah, sex is a whole episode. Okay. The luteal phase is the longest phase of the cycle, and it's my favorite because it's the phase that has progesterone. And for those of you who have been pregnant, you remember the second trimester. Do you remember how you got so much done? You planned all the parties, you bought all the stuff, you built a nursery, you like crushed it at work, you were like on top of it. That's progesterone's impact on your brain chemistry. It has a calming and focusing effect. It's your power hormone. It's my favorite phase of the cycle. But the problem is most of us don't make enough progesterone, so that we feel like the luteal phase is a terrible time, and it can really be. If you're not making enough progesterone and your estrogen is dominant, you'll be very symptomatic, brain foggy, moody, and all the stereotypical things. But if you get this dialed in with cycle syncing, then you're going to feel really, really great and strong. And it's my favorite time to get lots of deep work done. And also, your metabolism speeds up in the luteal phase. Studies show you need 279 more calories per day, so you have to eat more. And you cannot do HIIT workouts after ovulation because it turns on fat storage and muscle wasting. So you want to do different types of cardio and more strength training. And then the last is the bleeding phase. All hormones are at their lowest level, and we feel most inwardly focused. The right and left hemisphere communicate the most across the corpus callosum, making you really able to interpret the facts and feelings of a situation and navigate your next path forward for the next month. Every bleed is New Year's Eve. Start your resolutions while you're bleeding.
True.
That's the thing.
Great branding.
And there's no phase of your cycle where you should feel bad. If you're having any symptoms in any phase, like breaking out during ovulation or breast tenderness in ovulation, as we sort of, just to tie back to the first question, is like, what do we wish we told ourselves before? I just want everybody to walk away knowing if you have any symptoms at any time, do not tolerate them. Do not have this passive, like, oh, I'm just, this is what being a woman is. I'm destined to suffer. It's the curse. No, that's not scientifically accurate. You can get in there, roll up your sleeves with your diet and lifestyle, and fix that pretty quickly.
I love everything you said. I also feel like it's shocking to find out that the workout that you love or the HIIT workout that you love is not, contributing to lean muscle mass, or your workout is actually going against you. That's, I think, shocking information that everybody should know, and that you have to actually think about your workouts across your cycle, and that consistency that maybe you're used to, that you need for that mental boost, isn't actually helping you, but it's actually, potentially going against you or harming you, is fascinating and something everyone should know and tune into. And I love that bit of information. As we wrap up, I'd love to ask you guys one final question. Obviously, the name of our brand is Ritual, and I started the company because I wanted people to elevate from a routine to a habit into a ritual. Ritual is something they look forward to. And through this conversation, I'm absorbing that people should be looking forward to their periods. And so I'd love to ask you one final question, as what is that one period ritual that you guys look forward to and that you have? What's your period ritual?
I would say, I know I was sharing earlier how I kind of communicate to my partner, my husband, or my team and people around me that I'm on my period. I notice that I'm harder on myself during that time. I'm a little more emotional. And I think my ritual is I actually enjoy telling others because they remind me how I should give myself grace. So I tend to be so hard on myself, and even more so when I'm on my period. And it's so nice to have people around you in a right supportive community because they remind me, oh, it's, it might be just hormonal swings. You're not, crazy, or just give yourself grace. And I think as women, we can do that a lot more than we're doing right now.
Love that. Alissa? You have so many, it's probably hard for you to choose.
Well, I mean, certainly cycle syncing, because depending on which phase I'm in of the cycle, I'm doing rituals that support that phase. But if we're specifically talking about the bleeding phase, that first day, I really treat it like the queen has come for a visit. And I have an outfit that I like to wear that makes me feel really beautiful. I make this pot of tea in my very special teapot. I clear my calendar so that I'm only doing things that are feeling really like nourishing. I have a lot of downtime. I read books. I'm outside if the weather's nice, like whatever. I'm just, that day, it's like it's a special day. It's like a holiday. It's like a special day. And the reason why I treat it like this is because for 10 years, from the age of 12 to 22, I was not menstruating, So I know what it's like to live without this. And I also know that in a couple of years, my cycle is going to wrap up and I'll be postmenopausal. So every time I get my period, it's a gift, because I know it's not a guarantee, especially in today's hormonally disruptive environment. So that first day, my ritual is to treat it like the gift that it is, to receive it like the queen has come to visit, in my fancy outfit with my fancy teacup. I even have a special teacup that's like a filigree on it and the whole thing. And it's a beautiful day. Every day of my period is my favorite day, but that's what that day looks like.
I love it.
That is aspirational, I have to say. I'm like, can you send me a picture of your teacup and your fancy outfit? I
was thinking that
I'm
too.
gonna put it up on my mood board of like what I want my life to look like. That sounds good.
Happy too.
Yeah, mine's like, what are the dirty sweatpants that I have that have already been stained before, and the underwear that I don't have to rewash because it'll also probably get.
Wear your best underwear. Your best everything.
Oh my God, that scares the living shit out of me. But that's
different perspective. I'm inspired. I love that.
I would never wear a fancy dress or outfit, but now I don't know.
Got to shift
it. Anyways, thank you guys so much. I'm so inspired. I'm blown away by all this information, and I can't believe that I'm basically 40 and just learning about all this for the first time. And I'm excited to incorporate that into my ritual. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This was a blast, and just allowing us to chat about all the fun stuff we love. So
thank you guys. And where can everyone buy your products and your brands? Can you guys give us some links or .coms that we can follow for our audience?
Sure. You can follow my company. We're on Instagram, all the socials, beeya, beeya wellness. And we do a ton of content there. And also our website, beeyawellness.com.
Alissa?
You can buy both my books wherever books are sold, Woman Code and In the Flow. I think, social media, it's Flow Living, FLO Living. And then my personal socials, alissa.vitti. You can start your hormonal healing journey at flowliving.com and take the hormonal evaluation and see which supplements are right for your condition and all of that. And then you can start cycle syncing by downloading the app I created called MyFlow, and make sure it has a circle icon. And that's the only official cycle syncing app, where you'll get recipes and workout videos and time management, all geared toward your unique cycle phases, so that you don't have to remember everything we said in the podcast.
We'll remember some of it and download the rest. Thank you guys. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.